Hello, welcome to those who are joining. Hello, Julie. Hello, Jose, Yankee, Karuna. How's my audio? How's video? Internet connection, all that? All right. Very good. Thank you. So, as usual, we'll give it a few minutes before we get started. Hello, Joy. Welcome. We'll get started in a few minutes. Hello, Gregory. Welcome. I see your question, Karuna. I'll answer it after we do the introduction. Hello, Anna and Rick. Hello, Jayantha. Welcome. All right, let's get started. Share screen. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Mano pubangama dhamma mano setta manomaya manasa che paduttena basativa karotiva tato nang dukam anveti chakkang va vahato padam mano pubangama dhamma mano setta manomaya manasa che pasanena basativa karotiva tato nang sukam anveti chaya va anapayani. Anicca vata sankara upada vayadamino upajitva nirujjanti te sangvu pasumo sukho sabba papassa karanang kusalas upasampada satchitta pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasanang Kanti paramang tapo tittika nibbanang paramang vadanti buddha. Ahi pabbajito parupagati samanohoti parang vihetayanto. Anupavado anupagato patimokke cha samvaro mattanyuta cha bhattasming pantancha sayanasanam adichatte cha yogo etam buddhana sasanam. English. All actions are led by the mind. Mind is their master, mind is their maker. Actors speak with a defiled state of mind, and suffering follows as the cartwheel follows the foot of the ox. All actions are led by the mind. Mind is their master, mind is their maker. Actors speak with a pure state of mind, and happiness follows as your shadow follows you without departing. Impermanent are all conditioned things, affected by rising and falling away. Having arisen, they then must cease. Blissful is it when they subside. Abstaining from all evil, doing what is good, cleansing one's mind. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. Patience is the highest practice. Nibbana is supreme, say the Buddhas. A mendicant does not harm others, a recluse oppresses no one. Not insulting, not harming, restrained according to the moral code, moderating in food, dwelling in solitude, engaging in higher mental development. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. All right, friends, it is Monday night, and that means it's time for another Dhammapalooza, the festival of Dhamma with the Maggasekha community that we come together every Monday for a variety of Dhamma-related activities. We just did some chanting. Later, we'll do some meditation. In between, who knows what we're going to do, because Dhammapalooza is always community guided. And so with that said, what we usually do now is I give it a few minutes to see if anybody has any questions they'd like me to answer in the chat, any topics they'd like me to give a Dhamma talk of, or any topics you'd like the community to discuss. And if nothing comes up, well, then we can always play Sutta Roulette. So let me check the chat here. Hello, Misty Moon. I think you've been on one of our sessions before, Misty Moon, have you not? The name is vaguely familiar. It's been a while, but. All right. So, Bante, how am I? How are you? I'm existing in samsara. That's how I am. No. It's a quite broad question. How am I? I'm doing pretty good here in Colorado. My body's still not quite adjusted to the time change and the altitude, and I'm a little bit tired, but it's a good tired, and had some good productive, especially yesterday. It was just like a full-on day of very productive Dhamma networking. I even went to, in the evening, I went to a refuge recovery. So that's the Buddhist addiction recovery thing, and it was really good. It was quite interesting. Wasn't expecting there to be so many people. There was like 30 people there, and so many people had like so much gratitude for that program, and I was kind of happy that the the Buddhist aspects and philosophies can be helpful to people like that. So. Yes, that's right, Misty Moon from KBV, Karuna Buddhist Vihara. Yeah. All right. So I have, so things are going good in Colorado. I'm just kind of doing my regular daily stuff when there's nothing else going on, and making more connections. Going to have my my event at the library, and at first I thought that like there was no way that I'd get 20 people to come, but now I think I should have probably gotten a bigger room. I don't know. So it looks positive. We'll see how many people come. But I've gotten some talk, some chatter from people that seems like it could be a well-attended event. So that's good. All right. When I come back, I'll be with family for about 2 weeks, and then I'll spend 2 weeks at Empty Cloud. The first 2 weeks in December, I'll be there. All right. This is a question. This is a topic that I have a lot to say on. Can you talk about Marana? Well, it's Marana Nusati. So you missed the NU there. I guess Marana Sati is kind of like that is technically death mindfulness, but the official Pali word is Marana Nusati. Yeah, I can talk about that. The first thing I think, if you've not seen my 5-part article that I wrote years back about the whole process and practice of mindfulness of death practices, I can link that. I don't know. Hopefully it's linking in the. You can click the link, I guess, on the YouTube or copy paste. I don't know. So what we think of as Marananusati is a collection of a variety of different practices. Usually what I recommend for people who are kind of just starting out with it, who've not really practiced this type of practice, is to make it a habit of reflecting on the 5 subjects of contemplation at least once a day. 5 subjects of contemplation are: I am subject to old age and decay. I've not gone beyond old age and decay. I'm subject to illness and disease. I've not gone beyond illness and disease. I'm subject to death. I've not gone beyond death. I'm subject to everything, everyone dear and pleasing to me I will be separated from. And the 5th being, I am the owner of my actions, heir of my actions, have my actions as my relative. Whatever I do for good or ill, to that I shall be the heir. So before you jump into, like, visualizing body parts and dead and decaying bodies, for a lot of people, it's probably best to start with this. This is often more than enough for a while, because most people have gone their whole lives not doing these reflections. And even just repeating, regularly that you're subject to old age, sickness, and death itself can cause some stress in people. But if you practice it and you develop it, then that stress goes away, and you you start to develop it as a very insightful and calming practice. And I have that. This is in the article there, the 5 subjects, including the link to the suttas. And so there's two mindfulness of death suttas: mindfulness of death 1 and mindfulness of death 2. And in mindfulness of death 1, the Buddha asks the monks, do you practice mindfulness of death? And they said, yes, we do. And the Buddha says, how do you practice mindfulness of death? And one monk says, I practice like, if only for a day and a night, I would pay attention and practice the Buddha's teachings, that would be for my benefit. And then another monk says, if only for a day or a night I would practice these teachings, that would be for my benefit. And then, I always picture like a classroom, like the Buddha is like a teacher in the classroom where all the kids are like raising their hands and try to one up each other. Because then the next monk is like, I practice if only for a quarter of a day, a half of the the day or half of the night. I would practice the Buddha's teachings, and this would be of great benefit. And then it keeps going down, and then a couple hours, and then the time it takes to finish a meal, and then the time it takes to finish a couple spoonfuls, and then the time it takes to have one chew from a spoonful. Or another person says the time it takes to breathe in or to breathe out. And so after these monks are like going down like the list of what is, I practice it even more every day. Then the Buddha says that those who practice mindfulness of death for the time it takes to breathe in, not having breathed out, or the time it takes to chew and swallow one morsel, those monks are practicing diligently. All the rest are lazy. Right? That's pretty hardcore for the Buddha. The Buddhist can be pretty hardcore. He doesn't take any laziness. So if you are constantly reflecting on mindfulness of death, then the Buddha says you're diligent. And then the other mindfulness of death sutta, the Buddha says, upon going to bed, one should reflect, I may die tonight, and there are many ways that I may die. And it's a whole list of, heart attack or stroke or centipedes or scorpions or bad poison food or digestion or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's probably like, I think 20 things at least that's listed. And then having woken up in the morning, you reflect, I might die today. And you reflect on all the different ways you could die. And you can't get them all because there's thousands, if not more, ways you can die in a day. Maybe hundreds of thousands of ways you can die. But, you can reflect on a variety of ways that you might die. And so then the Buddha says, after reflecting on this, one should look at their mind and see if there is any unskillful, unwholesome mind states and habits left. And if there is, one should practice like their head is on fire for the abandoning of that unskillfulness. This is one of the main places we get the, from the Maggasekha community on the Discord, where I put the mountain fire banner and lion. The fire is practicing like your head's on fire. The urgency of, I might die at the end of today, so I'm not going to put off things. Right? I'm going to practice diligently. So that's the mindfulness of death. And then you get into the asubha practices. Subha means beautiful. Asubha means not beautiful. And so this is the reflection on, you can see this in Satipatthana Sutta. This is the reflection on the parts of the body to really understand what this body is. You know, you reflect the Buddha's gives 21 parts, but you don't need to memorize the exact list. If you have an what you call anatomy book or an anatomy app on your phone, or you just know bunch of parts of the body, you can just reflect on that. The Buddha says that we have an intoxication with health, an intoxication with youth, an intoxication with life. We are intoxicated by this body and other people's bodies. And so this practice is to bring you away from the intoxication to the middle, to really understand what this body is about. It's not a misconception is that you're supposed to gross yourself out of the body. This is not how that works. That's not really a wise thing to do. If you're going too far to the gross out and in the hatred of body, you have to do some mindfulness of breathing or some metta practices to bring yourself back to the middle. But for the most of us, we're kind of all the way in the intoxication. So we can do a good amount of practices before we have to worry about that. And then there's charnel ground contemplation, where we visualize and reflect on the decay of the body, of the corpse. Now, just as one day this body will lie bereft of life like a useless tree stump, and then it'll decay, etc. So that's pretty much all the different aspects of Marananusati, Asubha, mindfulness of death practices. In short, I explain all this in the article in much greater depth, but we don't have all night for just one question. So, all right. You have stage 4 cancer. Well, best of luck, and however long you have, whether the cancer takes you or you beat it and you move on, practice like your head's on fire. Somebody who has stage 4 cancer, I think, has that that urgency, right? Because that's stage 4 is pretty close to the end. It depends on the cancer and stuff like that. But so I wish you well, and hope for your recovery, so you can attend many more Dhammapaloozas. All right. Let's see. Yes. I was wondering where I was. I know, I forgot to mention that I didn't know until late that I was going to be out, like literally all day and all night, going to different places. But yeah, and I didn't make a note as if I'm glad I was there to cover, though. I'm glad there's at least one monastic. I always encourage, even if there's no monastics, for the lay people to read on Sutta Monday, but they tend not to want to do it. In the old days, they did. In the early days of the Discord channel, when there's few people, even if I wasn't around, they still read. But these days is not so much. All right. Gregory has a complicated and tough question. I find it hard to make a connection between some of the links of dependent origination, specifically volition to consciousness. Yeah, the first couple links of dependent origination are hard because they're not obvious things that you experience in your mundane day-to-day life. You know, how clinging leads to existence, that's a bit easier. That's a bit easier, I think, to understand. But yeah, it's not easy. Then Bodhi says the commentary combines ignorance, volition, craving, clinging, and existence as the karma producing links, but that seems like a big leap. Yeah, I don't know. I would have to understand the I would have to understand like the reasoning and see like a little bit of an explanation of why these are connected in the commentary. Um, so I don't know that I could really say that that's accurate or not, to be honest with you. It's not really something that the Buddha does in the suttas. Doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. It's just not something um, I'm familiar with. All right, so back to craving leading to clinging leading to existence. This is the cycle that's telling you how your tanha propels you on to the next life. You don't let go. You can't stop clinging, and that clinging is the momentum that propels you to the next life. So you have a body. Once you have a body, once you have that namarupa, then you have that salayatana, the six senses. Once you have those six senses, you're all primed for all kinds of contact with the outside world. And when you have contact through the senses, you have feeling. Right? Oh, this contact is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And then you judge that contact. This is where tanha comes in, thirst, craving. You like pleasant, you don't like unpleasant. And as you do that, that tanha builds up to clinging, that craving to have pleasant things. And once you have a pleasant thing, you don't want to let it go. You hold it, and then maybe it slips through your fingers, it runs away, then you're chasing after it again, continuing, keep going after it, chasing after it. And then, as in one of the suttas, the Buddha says, I think actually it's Ratapala Sutta, where Ratapala says, you go to the grave with plans unabated. Right? So if you want to keep living forever, you can. No problem. Just keep craving, keep clinging. No problem. You'll be in samsara forever. No worries. Those of us who want to, move towards the ending of existence, well, it's the second noble truth. We have to work towards the abandoning of our craving. That craving is so strong. That desire to keep experiencing things are so strong. You reach the end of your life. I think this is one of the reasons why the death experience can be very powerful experience for development on the path, right? You see in the suttas how monks became awakened either right before death or at death, and a large part of that is being able to let go. Right? Have they worked to be able to let go of their craving? You know, that can be a powerful playground. I don't know what the word is. Powerful platform for development of insight. So if there's anything specific you want me to address, Gregory, you can type it again. But I think that's what I have to say for that question. Anna, Bante, this came up in my contemplation of life and fear of death. Is time infinite or finite? The Buddha did not answer such questions. Although I just did post an interesting, let me go. I'm just looking for a quote that I posted earlier. There we go. This is from an astrophysicist. All of the universe, from the biggest galaxy to the smallest atom, will one day die. We don't see evidence of anything being eternal. Eternity does not exist. Even space and time will come to an end. So you have the Buddha and science saying the same thing. So there's your answer. Well, actually, the Buddha didn't answer, but considering everything is anicca, I think that makes the most sense. Gregor says, where are the best links to make better choices? I heard somebody talk about the space between feeling and craving. Feeling, so the space between Vedana and Tanha, right? That's kind of where you can observe how your mind works. Right? Observe how you cause yourself suffering. And that's also where you can, like in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, how does the line go? This is where craving arises when it arises. This is where it ceases when it ceases. And so if you did focus and that you have a sight arise with the eye, and it's a pleasant sight, and then the desire to continue looking at it, that's where you can do some good work. Hello, Dharma learner. Welcome. Jose, I had a more mundane question. I had a painful breakup with a woman I loved. She moved on and had a new relationship in a month, which made me feel worse. Any helpful Buddhist teachings for that? I think it's a little bit easier for women to have somebody else soon than a guy, right? Because there's always probably multiple suitors waiting in the wings. But this is the nature of anicca, right? This is we just talked about the 5 subjects of contemplation. We will be separated from everything and everyone we love. So, there's going to be some maybe resentment, some jealousy. That's normal. That's normal. Um, Practice a lot of metta. Practice a lot of metta for yourself. Practice a lot of metta for her. Give her good wishes in her samsaric journey. And, work towards letting her go. And that's going to be a process. That's not going to be overnight. It'll take some time. But whenever you feel that resentment or that agitation or jealousy arise, that's where you can practice the 4 Brahma Viharas. You can reflect on that. Our time is done. People come in and out of our lives. If you really look at it, as a monk, this is kind of really kicked into high gear as a monk because on my Discord and everything, or when I was at Bhavana, you just see people flowing through. People come on the Discord, and then they're there for a while, and then they go away. And then maybe they come back in a year or two. Maybe they just don't ever come back again. And people are just constantly flowing in and out of your life. And this is a really good lesson in that. My therapist it's not a Buddhist saying, but I really liked it. And I think there's some good Buddhist wisdom in it. And so my therapist told me years and years ago that people flow through your life like a river, and you shouldn't dam the river to keep people from leaving, and you shouldn't dam the river to keep people from coming in. Right? Because both are not good. Both are not skillful. When people get hurt, they might dam the river in the beginning. They don't want more people coming in. They don't want to, get involved with people because they don't want to get hurt again. And that's an understandable, self-defense mechanism or whatever. But it really doesn't help you in the long run. Nor just trying to keep people around that it's their time to move on. So if you can work towards letting people come in and they're there for however long they're there in your life, and then they're gone. Of course, that doesn't feel nice. It's not pleasant. But the more you reflect on that, the more you understand that, of course, this is the nature of reality. Even if, say, you do find a woman and you do get married, and let's say you actually live a long life, maybe you're married 50 years, there still comes a time where there's separation. This is the nature of things. So, be kind to yourself. Give yourself lots of metta. Give her lots of metta. And let yourself go through the grieving process. Any kind of loss. It doesn't have to be the death of somebody. Any kind of loss. There's a bit of a grieving process. There's a process of processing the breaking of the attachment to that person or that place, item, experience, whatever it is. Like the attachment being broken is a painful thing, and it takes some time to heal that wound up. Do you have experiences in making spaces accessible or inclusive for deaf followers? I met one yesterday in DC. He related to me some difficult experiences he had. Since then, I've been reflecting a lot about how to be more welcoming as a lay disciple, or how places Dhamma teachings could be more accessible. You know, it's good to want to kind of make things more accessible, but there is the practical limits of things, right? If you're spending all the time trying to make it, something accessible for this person and that person and this person, then you're not doing any Dhamma. It's like, because all of your time becomes, this kind of, trying to make it accessible. And then what are you making accessible? Nothing, because you're not doing any Dhamma. I saw this at Bhavana. You know, people always had demands. They wanted, oh, can you do this? You should do that. This is good for people. That's good for people. It's good. And you just don't understand, like, how much support is pretty slim for most places. How much of that support do you spend on doing all these kind of extra things? Now, if, say, I had a monastery, or, and there was somebody who knew sign language, and they wanted to do sign language to my talks, no problem. Come on up here. I'll give the talk. You do the sign language. No problem. Right. But, then I remember the hassle and the expense of at Bhavana trying to make every single place like wheelchair accessible, which is really exhausting. This is Bhavana seems like it's a big place, but it's really not a big rich place. It's it takes a big effort to do something like that. And you could say, of course, that's a good thing. It should be that way, so that people who are wheelchairs, or either handicapped persons or older people, older people may not be that ambulatory. That would be good for them to come to a retreat. But then then we have to do something, set aside something in the meditation hall. Then we have to do this. Then we have to do that. So there's a balance that needs to be struck there. For a meditation center to be involved in doing all of these things. The deaf thing is pretty easy. If there's a volunteer that does sign language, that's easy. That's not an expense or anything that you have to worry about. But yeah. If it's like a monastery in Thailand or Sri Lanka or whatever, lots of support, lots of money, lots of lay people would even do the work. They probably get 20, 30 lay people that come, to do it. So it depends on, what you're able to do as a center. Joy, I did talk about the 32 parts of the body already. Scroll up and look at the link for my mindfulness of death article, and you can I do an in-depth understanding of contemplation of how to practice that. Hello, Douse. Welcome. All right. Oh, we've come to the end of the chat. Maybe we'll do some sutta roulette. No problem, Karuna. I know it was probably not as my response was probably not as fluffy and nice as you expected, but there are practicalities to these things as well. You know, uh, it's not it's a complicated thing on multiple fronts. So, all right. Okay, let's do sutta roulette. Let's see. Actually, you know what? We'll see how much time we have. But actually, I do have a sutta that I brought up that you never expect me to be fluffy. I don't know how I feel about that. uh, I kind of feel like I'm a little bit fluffy, but yeah. I think we're going to read a sutta since we've been talking about craving and clinging and such. Um, why don't we read the Majjhima Nikaya number 38, the Great Discourse on the Destruction of Craving. Let's see. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Now, at that time, the mendicant called Sati, as opposed to Sati. Sati is mindfulness. Sati. I don't know what Sati is, if it has a meaning or not. Maybe not. Sati, the fisherman's son. Satisa. Nope, nothing. Tissa is son, like it's like of the fisherman. So the fisherman's son had the following harmful misconception. As I understand the Buddhist teachings, it's this very same consciousness that roams and transmigrates, not another. Several mendicants heard about this. They went up to Sati and said to him, "Is it really true, Reverend Sati, that you have such harmful misconception? As I understand the Buddhist teachings, it is this very same consciousness that roams and transmigrates, not another." Absolutely, Reverence. As I understand the Buddhist teachings, it's this very same consciousness that roams and migrates, not another. Where was I talking about? I was just talking about this actual sutta about, because somebody asked me about consciousness. Maybe that was on Saturday. I don't know. But then, wishing to dissuade Sati from this view, the mendicants pursued, pressed, and grilled him. Don't say that, Sati. Don't misrepresent the Buddha, for misrepresentation of the Buddha is not good. And the Buddha would not say that. This kind of anybody who thinks it's like the same consciousness that goes to life, this pretty much shoots that in the water. This pretty much kills that view. In many ways, the Buddha has said that consciousness is dependently originated, since without a cause, consciousness does not come to be. So if consciousness is dependent, it is changeable and cannot be the very same. Right? The Buddha spoke of consciousness as a process of phenomena. All right, there you go. But even though the mendicants pressed him in this way, Sati obstinately stuck to his misconception and insisted on stating it. When they weren't able to dissuade Sati from his view, the mendicants went to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and told him what had happened. And they repeat everything that just happened. So the Buddha said to addressed one of the monks, "Please, monk, in my name, tell the mendicant Sati." The teacher summons him. "Yes, sir," that monk replied. He went to Sati and said to him, "Reverend Sati, the teacher summons you." "Yes, Reverend," Sati replied. He went to the Buddha, bowed, and sat down to one side. The Buddha said to him, "Is it really true, Sati, that you have such a harmful misconception? As I understand the Buddha's teaching, it is this very same consciousness that roams and transmigrates, not another." "Absolutely, sir. As I understand the Buddha's teachings, it is this very same consciousness that roams and transmigrates, not another." "Sir, Sati, what is that consciousness?" "Sir, he is the speaker, the knower, who experiences the results of good and bad deeds in all the different realms." "Silly man, who on earth have you ever known me, or who on earth have you ever known me to teach in that way?" Okay, so it's who would I have taught that to? All right. "Haven't I said in many ways that consciousness is dependently originated, since consciousness does not arise without a cause? But still you misrepresent me by your wrong grasp, harm yourself, and create much wickedness. This will be for your lasting harm and suffering." Then the Buddha said to the mendicants, "What do you think, mendicants? Has this mendicant Sati kindled even a spark of ardor in the teaching and training?" "How could this be, sir?" "No, sir." When this was said, Sati sat silent, dismayed, shoulders drooping, downcast, depressed, with nothing to say. Knowing this, the Buddha said, "Silly man, you will be known by your own harmful misconception." Poor guy even has a sutta we can read about him 2,600 years later. He will be known for his harmful misconception. I'll question the mendicants about this. Then the Buddha said to the mendicants, "Mendicants, do you understand my teachings as Sati does, when he misrepresents me by his wrong grasp, harms himself, and creates such wickedness?" "No, sir. For in many ways, the Buddha has told us that consciousness is dependently originated. Without a cause, consciousness does not come to be." Good, good, mendicants. It's good that you understand my teaching like this. Another aspect of this that comes to my mind now is one of the dangers of Sati's view on this is that it gets dangerously close to Atta. It gets dangerously close to this is my permanent self, right? This is the knower. This is the one who sees. This is the one who experiences the Kama. No, you've heard me say it so many times. If I don't become a stream enter in this life, I could be a female kangaroo in the next life. And that female kangaroo is going to experience the Kama. Not me, Bante J. Right? We might have connection through the stream of consciousness, but even between this being and that female kangaroo, nowhere near the same. Don't expect that you will be you in your next life. That's not how it works. It's good that you understand my teaching like this, for in many ways I have told you that consciousness is dependently originated, since without a cause, consciousness does not come to be. But still this Sati misrepresents me by his wrong grasp, harms himself, and creates much wickedness. This will be for his lasting harm and suffering. Consciousness is reckoned according to the very same condition dependent upon which it arises. Consciousness that arises dependent on the eye and sight is reckoned as eye consciousness. Consciousness that arises dependent on the ear and sounds is reckoned as ear consciousness. Consciousness that arises dependent on the nose and smells is reckoned as nose consciousness. Consciousness that arises dependent on tongue and taste is reckoned as tongue consciousness. Consciousness that arises dependent on the body and touches is reckoned as body consciousness. Consciousness that arises dependent on the mind and ideas is reckoned as mind consciousness. It's like fire, which is reckoned according to the very same condition dependent upon which it burns. A fire that burns dependent on logs is reckoned as log fire. And by the way, while I'm reading this, I do check the chat. So if you have questions, you want me to clarify something, you're more than welcome to type in the chat. A fire that burns dependent on grass is reckoned as a grass fire. A fire that burns dependent on cow dung is reckoned as a cow dung fire. A fire that burns dependent on husks is reckoned as a husk fire. A fire that burns dependent on rubbish is reckoned as a rubbish fire. In the same way, consciousness is reckoned according to the very same condition dependent upon which it arises. Mendicants, do you see that this has come to be? Yes, sir. Do you see that it originated with that as fuel? Yes, sir. Do you see that when that fuel ceases, what has come to be is liable to cease? Yes, sir. Does that arise when you're uncertain whether or not it has come to be? Yes, sir. Does that arise when you're uncertain whether or not this has originated with that as fuel? Yes, sir. Does that arise when you're uncertain whether or not, when that fuel ceases, what has come to be liable to cease? Yes, sir. Is doubt given up in someone who truly sees with right understanding that this has come to be? Who truly sees with right understanding dependent origination. Yeah. Oh, this is a stream enter who has seen dependent origination and given up the doubt. All right, so I got part of that right. This is a stream enter as well. Okay. Is doubt given up in someone who truly sees with right understanding that this has originated with that fuel? Yes, sir. Is doubt given up in someone who truly sees with right understanding that when that fuel ceases, what has come to be is liable to cease? Yes, sir. This is another interesting thing. A stream enter sees dependent origination. What else? What fetter has a stream enter abandoned? Sakkaya Ditthi, identity view. Stream enter understands that this is just processes. Still has the conceit I am. So it's still not, only an arahant has abandoned the conceit I am. But the stream enter understands that it's all processes, conditioned things arising, conditioned things ceasing, depending on that which it was conditioned by. Is doubt given up in someone who truly sees with right understanding that when that fuel ceases, what has come to be is liable to cease? Yes, sir. Are you free of doubts as to whether this has come to be? Yes, sir. Are you free of doubts as to whether this has originated with that fuel? Yes, sir. Of course, that fuel being what the Buddha was talking about above, using those similes, right? The I consciousness is dependent on the I and forms, etc. Like that. So that's what the Buddha means. He's previously given the causes and conditions, and now he's just shortening it to that fuel. Yes, sir. Are you free of doubt as to whether when the fuel ceases, what has come to be is liable to cease? Right? So are you free of doubt that when this ceases, that ceases? Remember when I talk about dependent origination, it can be summed up in terms of all of existence in 2 lines. When this arises, that arises. When this ceases, that ceases. The 12 links of dependent origination is specific to how a being stays in the samsaric cycle. But those 2 lines describe all sankharas, which is literally everything. Everything is sankhara except for nibbana. Everything is conditioned. Are you free of doubt as to whether, when that fuel ceases, what has come to be liable to cease? Yes, sir. Have you truly seen clearly with right understanding that this has come to be? Yes, sir. Have you truly seen with right understanding that this has originated with that as fuel? Yes, sir. Have you truly seen clearly with right understanding that when that fuel ceases, what has come to be is liable to cease? Yes, sir. Which way do you think that it doesn't fit with dependent origination? Clarify that for me. So, does it arise when volitional formation or birth? So, it arrives before birth, right? Bhava is first. So, bhava would be like the fertilization of the womb, the coming together of the 3 things, right? The mother, father, the Gandhava, the being ready to be reborn, etc., etc. So, that is bhava. And then the being gestates in the womb, and then birth. So that's the distinction between those 2 things. Or if it's not a human, maybe it's a spontaneously reborn being. So maybe that bhava and that jati are the same, the birth and the bhava, as they come into existence. But, I see. Yeah, well, there's in all of the Paticca Samuppada suttas, you see other distinctions besides the specific 12. So the Buddha will sometimes start after ignorance. Sometimes he'll connect to other parts. So I wouldn't get too confused on that regard. It's more about how the Buddha is using it for the specific point he's making in that individual sutta. Gregory, it sounds like you're deep into dependent origination. What I highly suggest going on YouTube and watching the series with Bhante Sujato and Ajahn Brahmali, where they go over dependent origination in the early texts. It's like a bunch of hours. It's like, I think, 20 plus hours or maybe 30, but it's really good. I listened to it a couple of years ago. All right, let's continue on with the suttas. I see. Hello, Mariah. This is a long one, and we've gone. Maybe I made a mistake in choosing a long sutta this late, but we'll keep going. Pure and bright as this view is, mendicants, if you cherish it, fancy it, treasure it, and treat it as your own, would you be understanding my simile of the teachings as a raft, for crossing over, not for holding on? No, sir. Pure and bright as this view is, mendicants, if you don't cherish it, fancy it, treasure it, and treat it as your own, would you be understanding my simile of the teaching as a raft, for crossing over, not for holding on. Yes, sir. Mendicants, there are these four fuels. They maintain sentient beings and that have been born and help those that are about to be born. What for? Solid food, whether coarse or fine. Contact is the second. Mental intention is the third. And consciousness is the fourth. These four fuels. What is the source, origin, birthplace, and inception of these four fuels? Craving. And what is the source of craving? Feeling. And what is the source of feeling? Contact. So now they're going back, going the reverse way of dependent origination. And what is the source of contact? The six sense fields. And what is the source of the six sense fields? Name and form. And what is the source of name and form? Consciousness. And what is the source of consciousness? Sankharas, choices. And what is the source of choices? Ignorance. So you see there, that's the 12, that's the links that you're familiar with in the quote unquote proper order that is given. So ignorance is a condition for choices. Choices are a condition for consciousness. Consciousness is a condition for name and form. Name and form is a condition for six sense fields. The six sense fields are a condition for contact. Contact is a condition for feeling. Feeling is a condition for craving. Craving is a condition for grasping. What does he have with this? Okay, he's just giving a little bit of... Grasping is a condition for continued existence. Continued existence is a condition for rebirth. Rebirth is a condition for old age and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair come to be. This is how this entire massive suffering originates. Rebirth is conditioned for old age and death. That is what I said. Is that how you see this or not? That's how we see it. Continued existence is a condition for rebirth. And lots of repetition. Ignorance is a condition for choices. That's what I said. Is that how you see this or not? That is how we see it. Good mendicants. So both you and I say this. When this exists, that is. Due to the arising of this, that arises. Ah, see? That is, ignorance is a condition for choices. Choices are a condition for consciousness. Consciousness, name, and form. I'm going to ellipse this here since for time, and we just went over them already. So when ignorance fades away, and now we go into dependent cessation. When ignorance fades away and ceases, with nothing left over, choices cease. When choices cease, consciousness ceases. When consciousness, name and form cease. When name and form cease, the six sense fields cease. When six sense fields cease, contact ceases. When contact ceases, feeling ceases. When feeling ceases, craving ceases. When craving ceases, grasping ceases. When grasping ceases, continued existence ceases. When continued existence ceases, rebirth ceases. When rebirth ceases, old age and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair cease. That is how this entire massive suffering ceases. When rebirth ceases, old age and death cease. That is what I said. Is that how you see it or not? That's how we see it. When continued existence ceases, rebirth ceases. When ignorance ceases, choices ceases. That's what I said. Is that how you see it or not? That's how we see it. Good mendicant. So both you and I say this. When this doesn't exist, that is not. Due to the cessation of this, that ceases. I'm just continuing through the repetition. Knowing and seeing in this way, mendicants, would you turn back to the past, thinking, did we exist in the past? Did we not exist in the past? What were we in the past? How were we in the past? After being what? What did we become in the past? No, sir. Knowing and seeing in this way, mendicants, would you turn forward to the future, thinking, will we exist in the future? Will we not exist in the future? What will we be in the future? How will we be in the future? After being what will we become in the future? No, sir. Knowing and seeing in this way, mendicants, would you be undecided about the present, thinking, am I? Am I not? What am I? How am I? This sentient being, where did it come from and where will it go? No, sir. Knowing and seeing this way, would you say, our teacher is respected, we speak like this out of respect for our teacher? No, sir. So this is basically the Buddha is saying, are you saying these things just out of respect for me? Or do you understand these things? And so they're saying, no, we're not saying it just out of respect. Knowing and seeing these things, would you say, our ascetic says this, we speak like this because it is what he says? No, sir. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you dedicate yourselves to another teacher? No, sir. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you believe that the observances and boisterousness, superstitious rites of the various ascetics and Brahmins are the most important thing? No, sir. Aren't you speaking only what you have known and seen and realized for yourself? Yes, sir. Good mendicants, you have been guided by me with the teaching that's apparent in this present life, immediately effective, inviting inspection, relevant, so that sensible people can know for themselves. For when I said that this teaching is apparent in this present life, immediately effective, inviting inspection, relevant, and the sensible people can know for themselves, this is the qualities of the Dhamma and the daily chanting in monasteries, Itipiso Bhagava, where you do the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. This is the qualities of the Dhamma being listed here. This is what I was referring to. Mendicants, when three things come together, an embryo is conceived. In a case where, oh wow, see, even this sutta is really good. Actually, it covers so many bases. I gotta remember to save this sutta. Mendicants, when three things come together, an embryo is conceived. In a case where the mother and father come together, but the mother is not in the fertile phase of her menstrual cycle, and the virile spirit is not ready, the embryo is not conceived. In the case where the mother and father come together, the mother is in the fertile phase of her menstrual cycle, but the virile spirit is not ready, the embryo is not conceived. But when these three things come together, the mother and father come together, the mother is in the fertile phase of her menstrual cycle, and the virile spirit is ready, the embryo is conceived. The mother nurtures the embryo in her womb for 9 or 10 months, at great risk to her heavy burden. When 9 or 10 months have passed, the mother gives birth at great risk to her heavy burden. When the infant is born, she nourishes it with her own blood. For mother's milk is regarded as blood in the training of the noble ones. The boy grows up and his faculties mature. He accordingly plays childish games such as toy plows, tip cat, somersaults. Could you imagine little kids in India 2,600 years ago doing somersaults? Pinwheels, toy measures, toy carts, and toy bows. That boy grows up and his faculties mature further. He accordingly amuses himself, supplied and provided with the 5 kinds of sensual stimulation. Sights known by the eye that are likable, desirable, agreeable, pleasant, sensual, and arousing. Sounds known by the ear, smells known by the nose, tastes known by the tongue, touches known by the body that are likable, desirable, agreeable, pleasant, sensual, and arousing. When they see a sight with their eyes, if it's pleasant, they desire it. But if it's unpleasant, they dislike it. They live with mindfulness of the body unestablished and their heart restricted. And they don't truly understand the freedom of heart and freedom by wisdom, where those arisen, bad, unskillful qualities cease without anything left over. Being so full of favoring and opposing, or liking and disliking, when they experience any kind of feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, they approve, welcome, and keep clinging to it. This gives rise to relishing. Relishing feelings is grasping. Their grasping is a condition for continued existence. Continued existence is a condition for rebirth, dependent origination cycle again. Rebirth is a condition for old age and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. come to be. That is how the entire mass of suffering originates. When they hear a sound with the ears, smell an odor with the nose, when they taste a flavor with their tongue, when they feel a touch with their body, when they know an idea with their mind. I'm just skipping past what we already did. But consider when a realized one arises in the world, perfected, a fully awakened Buddha, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy, knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to train, teacher of gods and humans, awakened and blessed. He has realized with his own insight in this world, with its gods, Maras, Brahmas, his population with its ascetics and Brahmins, gods and humans, and he makes it known to others. He proclaims a teaching that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, with the right meaning and phrasing. He reveals an entirely full and pure spiritual life. The householder hears the teaching, or a householder's child, or someone reborn in a good family. They gain faith in the realized one and reflect. Living in the house is cramped and dirty, but the life gone forth is wide open. It's not easy for someone living at home to lead the spiritual life utterly full and pure, like a polished shell. Why don't I shave off my hair and beard, dress in ochre robes, and go forth from lay life to homelessness? After some time, they give up a large or a small fortune and a large or small family circle. They shave off their hair and beard, dress in ochre robes, and go forth from lay life to homelessness. Once they've gone forth, they take up the training and livelihood of the mendicants. They give up killing living creatures, renouncing the rod and the sword. They're scrupulous and kind, living full of compassion for all living beings. They give up stealing. They take only what's given and expect only what's given. They keep themselves clean by not thieving. They give up unchastity. They are celibate, set apart, avoiding the vulgar act of sex. They give up lying. They speak the truth and stick to the truth. They're honest and trustworthy and don't trick the world with their words. They give up divisive speech. They don't repeat in one place what has been heard in another so as to divide people against each other. Instead, they reconcile those who are divided, supporting unity, delighting in harmony, loving harmony, speaking words that promote harmony. They give up harsh speech. They speak in a way that's mellow, pleasing to the ear, lovely, going to the heart, polite, likable, and agreeable to the people. They give up talking nonsense. Their words are timely, true, and meaningful, in line with the teaching and training. They say things at the right time, which are valuable, reasonable, succinct, and beneficial. They avoid injuring plants and seeds. They eat in one part of the day, abstaining from eating at night, and food at the wrong time. They avoid seeing shows of dancing, singing, and music. They avoid beautifying and adorning themselves with garlands, perfumes, and makeup. They avoid high and luxurious beds. They avoid receiving gold and money, raw grains, raw meat, women and girls, male and female slaves, goats and sheep, chickens and pigs, elephants, cows, horses, and mares, and fields and land. They avoid running errands and messengers, buying and selling, falsifying weights, metals, or measures, bribery, fraud, cheating, and duplicity, mutilation, murder, abduction, banditry, plunder, and violence. Do you imagine a bandit monk? That would be quite a sight, huh? They're content with robes to look after the body and almshoot to look after the belly. Wherever they go, they set out taking only these things. They're like a bird wherever it flies, wings are its only burden. In the same way, a mendicant is content with robes to look after the body and alms food to look after the belly. Wherever they go, they set out taking only these things. When they have this entire spectrum of noble ethics, they experience a blameless happiness inside themselves. When they see a sight with their eyes, they don't get caught up in the features and details. If the faculty of sight were left unrestrained, bad, unskillful qualities of covetousness and displeasure would become overwhelming. For this reason, they practice restraint, protecting the faculty of sight and achieving restraint. This is the gradual practice. It's going to end in going through the jhanas And so we're probably going to ellipse some of this for time and becoming awakened and having the three knowledges, etc. When they hear a sound with the ears, smell an odor with the nose, taste a flavor with the tongue, they feel touch with the body. When they know an idea with the mind, they don't get caught up in features and details. If the faculty of mind were left unrestrained, bad, unskillful qualities of covetousness and pleasure would become overwhelming. For this reason, they practice restraint, protecting the faculty of mind and achieving its restraint. When they have this noble sense restraint, they experience the unsullied bliss inside themselves. Then they act with sampajanya, clear comprehension. And it's the same list in Satipatthana, going forth, coming back, extending the limbs, walking, going to the bathroom, etc. When they have this entire spectrum of noble ethics, this noble restraint and this noble mindfulness and situational awareness, they frequent secluded lodgings, a wilderness, the root of a tree, a hill, a ravine, a mountain cave, a charnel ground, a forest, the open air, a heavy straw, a heap of straw. After the meal, they return from the alms round, sit cross-legged, their bodies straight and established, mindfulness in front of them, and giving up the 5 hindrances, then jhanas, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. Let me see in the site. They truly understand the freedom of the heart and freedom by wisdom, where those arisen bad unskillful qualities cease without anything left over. Having given up favoring and opposing, when they experience any kind of feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, they don't approve, welcome, or keep clinging to it. As a result, relishing for feeling ceases. When their relishing ceases, grasping ceases. When grasping ceases, continued existence ceases. When the continued existence ceases, rebirth ceases. When rebirth ceases, old age and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair cease. That is the whole mass of suffering. And then it goes through the rest of the senses. Mendicants, you should memorize this brief statement on freedom through the ending of Craving. But the mendicant sati, the fisherman's son, is caught in a vast net of craving, a tangle of craving. That is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the mendicants approved of what the Buddha said. All right. I think we have some little bit of time to answer Mariah's question before we do some meditation and then call it a night. Bhante, can you explain how people can recall past lives? What is it that allows these memories to be accessed after bodily death? I don't know about after bodily. Oh, I understand what you mean. Like, what's the actual mechanism that allows the person who has come close to awakening to see that? It's a good question. It's never answered. Buddha doesn't give us any specific details. And you could say it's part of the flow, the flow of the mind that moves from one body to the next. Or if you want to say the flow of consciousness, the flow of the mind, different people say different things. It's basically the same thing. Well, yes, the Buddha almost never, I think maybe once or twice in the suttas, he defines consciousness as other than by the 6 senses. But overwhelmingly, when the Buddha is asked what is consciousness, he defines them in terms of the 6 senses. I think that makes sense on a variety of different levels. It helps to make sure that you're not looking for something that is outside of condition reality. Right? this consciousness is not something by itself. It's conditioned, and it's connected to the senses in that way. What is the Gandhava? Bhante Sujato and Ajahn Brahmali go into a whole thing on that series about this. It's quite an interesting thing. One of the newer theories of what a Gandhava is connected to the belief in ancient. Now again, this is just a theory. This is just speculation. Nobody has agreed that this is exactly what it is. But that in ancient India, in the Aryan tradition, the idea was that like a centaur, like a half human, half horse type creature, was the one who brought the being to the next rebirth, kind of like the stork bringing the baby, right? I wouldn't even doubt if that was those two things were somehow connected in that way, and so the Gandhava could be the being that's bringing the being that is, could be the thing that is bringing the being to be reborn, or it could be the being itself. Gandhava is one of those words that has a bunch of different meanings. Heavenly bards are Gandhavas, right? So it's just like many Pali words, different meanings depending on the context. All right, why don't we meditate for about 20 minutes or so? Now set your body up in whatever comfortable and stable position works for you. Close your eyes. We'll do a shortened scan of the body, starting with the feet, moving up to the head. Place your focus on the feet, the feeling and sensation arising from that part of the body, such as the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, the cushion, the couch, the other leg, however it's disposed. Moving up through the ankles into the calves. Through the knees and into the thighs. Up to the hips and pelvis. Checking the position of the pelvis in relation to the legs and the spine. Move up the spine through the abdomen and the chest. Checking the spine is not leaning or slouching. Up through to the shoulders, checking that they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. Down through the elbows and hands, observing how their position impacts your posture. And finally up to the head, checking that the head is also not leaning and slouching here or there, chin parallel to the floor. When you're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. This body has been breathing from the moment you were born and will continue to do so until the second you die. Doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath as the body is breathing in and breathing out. Remember to lay down your burdens, put aside all the aspects of your life. Lay them down for now and follow the breath. Remember, whenever you're distracted away, acknowledge, let go, and return. Always come back to the breath. Slowly start to open your eyes, becoming aware of the room around you and the people in it, or the position of your body, reflecting on the events of this short meditation. We will do sharing of merits and then call it a night. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, paya patta chane paya, soka patta chane soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata chamehi sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabba sampatti siddhya, ekat satta jabumata deva naga mehiddika punyang tan anumoditva charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit of ours that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty powers, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends, that's the end of another Dhammapalooza. Sukhihotu, may you be well and happy. May you practice well and be well. And may you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again, which could be tomorrow for morning monastery experience, 8 a.m., or it could be Saturday for insight timer session at 3, or another Dhammapalooza next Monday, same time. Have a good week, friends.